So my dad milked cows here up until about 2005. You know, like a lot of small dairy farms at the time, he couldn't make it work, couldn't make a living off it, couldn't see a future in the industry, so sold the cows, kept the farm but rented it out, and then for a good 15 years after that, it was mainly just crops here, not many cows, and I went to university, did engineering, but always drawn back to farming, and the big dream was actually to come home and milk cows. So that's what I've actually spent the last 5 or 6 years now doing. And yeah, this is Pentrefelin Dairy, and this is what a cow and calf micro dairy actually looks like. My name's Hugh Fowkes and this is Pentrefelin Micro Dairy. We're a small cow and calf dairy based in North Wales, just outside of a small town called Denbigh. We started off about 5 years ago with 4 heifers, and we're now milking around 20 to 25 milking cows. We've got a little farm shop on the yard where we sell the milk, cheese, yoghurts, and we also supply a handful of coffee shops as well in North Wales, which works really well. So there's no supermarkets, no middleman, no contract. Everything we sell goes direct. And yeah, it's a big part of what I do. But before I go a bit deeper into that, I'm going to answer a question today. Probably the most common question I get, and definitely one of the most important. And it's, you know, what actually is a micro dairy, because most people have never actually heard of one. A micro dairy is very simply just a very small dairy farm. So if you Google it, it's going to tell you that a micro dairy is fewer than 40 cows, but I like to think there's more, well, there's much more to it than just how many cows you milk. So here, there's no supermarket contract involved. There's no big milk lorry coming to the yard every day, taking all the milk and giving us a rubbish price for it. Everything we sell goes direct to the end consumer. So we've got to have a good relationship with our end customer, whether that's people come to the yard or one of the coffee shops we sell our milk to. And on a micro dairy, you know, it's very common, you know exactly where your milk's going, and your customers know exactly where it's coming from and how it's being produced. So that's a big part of what we do. And then we like to take things a little bit further here. So we are what you call a cow and calf micro dairy. So all our dairy cows get to keep their calves, whether they're female calves or bull calves. They all stay suckling the cows up until weaning, which usually happens around the end of the year before we go into winter. So it's a big part of what we do, and it's definitely been a big steep learning curve. And then another thing about our cows is they're all 100% grass fed. So the only thing they eat is what's grown in the pastures in front of them, which is usually Welsh grass, a bit of lucerne that we grow and we make into silage for the winter, and a bit of homemade hay as well. So I actually spent 13 years working on a commercial dairy farm down the road from here. We milked about 300 cows down there, and it's where I learned everything there is to know about cows, and I'm extremely grateful to the family I worked for. But I also got to see how vulnerable the industry is, and didn't want to be part of that global market. Prices set by people you never meet, people you don't know, and yeah, supermarkets have driven the value of milk down for decades, you know, ever since, well, even when my dad was at it. And they've driven it down to the point where people don't even think twice about the price of milk. And it's not good to see that it's cheaper than water in some supermarkets. So, and, you know, that is the problem. If you want high welfare, high quality dairy, it costs more than what you're seeing on the shelves. And when they're trying to price it the same as everything else on the shelves, unfortunately, a lot of things along that production line suffers. And that's usually the farmer, animal welfare, and the environment. So I knew I had to do things a bit differently when I came home, and you know, I can't really compete at scale here anyway because it is quite a small farm in dairy farming world. So, but then I didn't want to either, you know, I didn't want to. So, but then something I did notice at the time was consumer trends were changing a bit. People were taking a bit more interest in where their food comes from, how it's being produced, and I think people just waking up a bit to the effects, you know, cheap food is having on everything. So people wanted high welfare, want transparency, and I think especially around here, people just want to know their farmer as well, know exactly where the food comes from. So I started things a bit differently. I only started with 4 heifers because that was literally all I could afford. And yeah, went from there. That was in 2021. Didn't sell any milk for the first 12 months and made a start the following year with just a cool box at the farm gate. So if you ask me what really sets us apart from other dairies, I think the biggest USP we've got is the fact that we are a cow and calf dairy. It really is the heart of what we do basically, and yeah, I think it's what sets us apart, to be honest with you. And we all know in a conventional dairy, calves are taken away from their mothers pretty much straight away. That's just what the industry has to do basically. And when I started to set my own dairy up here and look at the much bigger picture, the sort of regenerative picture, the soil health, and using cows as a way to manage soil, it just made sense to try and figure out a system where cows can rear their own calves basically. And yeah, that's what we do. So calves stay with their mothers, like I said before, whether they're bull calves, whether they're heifer calves, and they suckle naturally up until they're weaned, and we take our half of the milk, calves take their half of the milk, and I'd argue you get healthier cows, you get healthier calves because of it. And yeah, healthier cows, healthier calves, better product, I reckon. So it is a bit harder to manage, it's a bit more of a faff compared to your conventional dairy, but that's why we have to ask a bit more for the milk basically. And efficiency isn't the only thing that that matters for us. So definitely been a steep learning curve with the cow and calf dairy, but I'd never do anything else again. So I think what frustrated me the most, or still frustrates me actually, is the bad reputation cows have in general. And I know, you know, it might be justified sometimes with industrial dairy, industrial beef, because yeah, I can see where it comes from, but it really doesn't have to be that way. And I think we're proving that here with what we're doing with the cows here. You know, I like to think our cows are part of a much bigger picture than just producing milk. You know, we manage them in a rotational grazing system that improves soil health, sequesters carbon, and, you know, provides habitat for wildlife and biodiversity as well. So I think we're improving year on year, and I think it just shows that, you know, cows aren't the problem here. It's how they're managed that really, really matters. And, you know, I want to show people with this YouTube channel and things we do online that it is possible to produce beef and dairy in a way that has a positive effect on the environment. So that's the whole point in all these channels. So on this YouTube channel, I'm literally going to document everything. I think there's only so much you can do on Instagram and Facebook and what have you. So I'm going to try and cover everything from the grazing system and how we manage the grazing, the cow and calf system, how that's managed with milking and everything, all the soil health we do, whether that's rotating it with crops and using the direct drill and the pigs we have. And I just want to show you the honest reality of building a farming business like this from scratch here in North Wales. So if you're a smallholder or thinking about starting a micro dairy or doing this type of thing, I'd like to think this channel's for you. If you're someone who just cares about where the food comes from and wants to know a bit more about that, I'd like to think the channel's for you as well. And you know, if you're a farmer that, you know, you're asking the same questions as I was asking myself 5 years ago, then I really hope this channel is for you as well. So subscribe, keep up to date with what we're doing. If you head over to our website, Pentrefelin.com, you can sign up for a few free PDFs and stuff on there, and subscribe to a mailing list as well. So there's already one video we've got up on YouTube about grazing lucerne I did last year, and we're actually going to be cutting that lucerne this week for silage. So there's going to be a video up on there in a few weeks with that hopefully as well. So thanks for watching. Hopefully it's been useful, and we'll catch you in the next video.